This episode brought to you by Audible! Audibletrial.com/horror virgin for 30 days free and a book to get you started. For your book recommendation, the one, the only.
It's me.
The Yen Ferratu.
This is our Mother's Day episode, and we're watching the Babadook.
What is it?
It
I didn't realize this was for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Well, that makes
She even
sense.
told me that.
I know. I told you that too. Yeah.
I don't listen.
So, it's clear. So today I'm going to recommend Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. It's really good.
So funny story about that. My mom's version of the Omen story, like when she was a little girl, she went to a party and they made her watch Rosemary's Baby and she refused to watch horror movies after that. And I had the same experience with the Omen. So yeah, I guess we should invite my mom to go see when we do that movie. We should have my mom on. Anyway.
Story, yeah.
Yeah, we need to have everybody's moms over for a mom episode.
All right, guys, everyone, call your mom, see if she's available. It's going to be a bitch to coordinate, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, because my mom goes to bed at as soon as sundown happens.
Just call Jen at 615-867-5309.
Yep.
Jen, I've got your number. I'm going to
wanna
call
meet
your mom. All right, so anyway, I don't even know how we got here, Jen. But
I
if you want,
recommended Rosemary's Baby and all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
if you want 30 days free and a book to get you started, go to audibletrial.com/horror virgin. What more do you want from me, Ed? This show also brought to you by Nick B.
Hey, Nick B. Mikey's not here to make up any shit about you.
Oh yeah, Mikey
let me
is
tell
not
you.
able to be here for this episode. He will be back next episode.
I know.
But
Who's going
because
to
of
make
that,
up Nick B facts?
I guess he'll get a reprieve this week. But Nick B did want you to check out God Country Film.
Yeah.
Because they just got funded and they need your help getting word out about the film. In
gonna be
fact,
awesome.
by this point, they've already filmed a few scenes and not my scene yet, which hurts my feelings.
Oh, you're in a scene?
I think they forgot to cast me.
Oh, did they?
I'll have a word with my agent about this.
Maybe they were just saving your scene and it's going to be like a surprise.
It would be a surprise to me.
Definitely be in the blooper reel at
Oh, yeah.
some point and all that.
Yes.
at the very
Probably at the
least.
Christmas party.
I honestly would just love to be a dead body somewhere. Like, that would be dope. So, guys, check out God Country Film at godcountryfilm.com or just God Country Film on the socials.
Yeah, Nick B, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
support.
So if you want your very own Patreon shout out, go to patreon.com/horrorvirgin and be like Nick B or
And
John,
Eddie,
and
Veronica. Hey, guys, thank you so much for your support. We love it. Thank you so much. I think there's an evil goldfish swimming around here.
No one's going to get that joke.
I know.
Everyone who's in the Facebook group is laughing right now. Everyone else is like, skip 30.
Aw.
Guys.
Yeah, can we bring the theme music in, please?
Yes.
I don't think that's...
There's no closet either.
No, there were closets.
I mean, there's that weird, like, closet-y thing on the stairwell called a Babadook.
It's a Babadook.
Welcome to the Horror Virgin, everybody. Something good from Australia.
Yeah, can you guess what movie we're talking about?
Right, exactly. Babadook. Hi, I'm Jen.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd. And today we have a guest.
Yes, we do. Returning
do.
guest.
It's
Yes.
Fan favorite.
Hey. Uh-huh.
Emily Hopkins.
Hey.
At your service.
Yay, we're so happy.
Well,
How about that? A wang it, wang it.
Gee.
So today we watched the Babadook.
Yes, we did. This is our Mother's Day episode.
Let's do first thoughts. Jen, what did you think about the movie?
Ooh, okay.
Wait, quick question. Sorry to ask you what you thought about and then cut you
I think
off.
what you meant to say you
Hey,
thought was.
do you mind if I mansplain how you felt about this movie?
Yeah.
So you two have both seen the movie before, right?
correct.
Yes.
And Jen, I know because you've told me that you love this
I
movie.
do,
Or
yeah.
at least like it.
Yeah,
And Emily, you told me in confidence earlier that you do not like this movie.
that is correct.
Yeah.
I still stand by that.
So you stand by it. Jen, do you stand by that you liked
I
it?
still stand by that I loved it.
I
yeah.
can see that. So I didn't think this movie was super scary. We'll talk about that more when we get to scary scale.
Yeah.
But it was still scary. Like I would never want to watch this movie again. Like it was that level of scary. But I don't think it was awful. It was really ham-fisted. Like it really beats you over the head with the point it's trying to get across. And I feel like it does a pretty bad job getting it across.
Disagree.
Well, I think it's because for me, it's too ham-fisted. It's
Yeah.
like reading Ayn Rand. I get it. You're a libertarian.
They are caricatures.
No one would write a speech that long, John.
60 pages.
Yeah. I don't love it because I feel like it's super ham-fisted, but I think you like it for that reason.
I do, yeah.
It's hard to miss the point they're trying to get across.
Yeah, now I will say it's hard to show depression and grief in an interesting, dynamic way in a movie, too. So I think that's a little where the over-the-topness of it came
Yeah,
from.
okay, so that's fair. I think that they missed the mark largely because you shouldn't present it this way because it's there. I don't really think there is a good way to do it. I don't think, like, I will look at some movies and be like, holy shit, I could have made a better movie. And that's saying something because I don't want to make movies. But I don't think I could have made a better version of this movie. I just think the idea behind this to show that grief and sort of depression and desperation on some level.
And like repression.
Yeah, well, and stuffing it down into the basement or whatever of your feelings. I don't feel like this is a good medium for that message. I don't think horror and that works that well. But I hate horror movies. So, like, I'm not the person to ask for that. But I mean, that's why I don't like it. Yeah. But I also understand why you do like it.
Well, okay, so let me say the first time I watched this book, I had a tiny child.
The first time you watched this book?
The first time I watched this movie that is about a book. So that's
a movie about a book. Babadook.
Babadook.
Nice. Are we going to get sued? Hang on 1 second.
No, I think you're good. Parody.
I do feel like LeVar Burton would be just like, he's driving on Sunset Boulevard in Santa Monica. He's just like, they got me. I wonder if he wears the visor everywhere. If I was LeVar Burton, I would wear those sunglasses everywhere. Yes, that would be awesome.
Have them specially made. Okay, so let me say, the first time that I watched this movie, I watched it, and I've talked a little bit about this online, but my husband is an accountant, so I watched this in like March, like right in the thick of tax season.
We get it. You're married.
I had a 9-month-old.
Oh, yeah.
I was a teacher, and I also had a 3-year-old who was going through a lot of behavior issues, including screaming all the time.
Why can't you be normal?
Yeah. And so this was like there was a part in this where I stopped it and cried for like 10 minutes. It was
tonight.
But like good.
There was a part for tonight. She stopped it and cried for 10 minutes.
I did. That's why I had to go downstairs. No, it's not really. but it was good because it was cathartic. I saw this and I loved the way it ended because it gave me hope when I was in this really, really dark place. And so that's part of why I really like it. And I connected with even more this time, which I'm excited to talk about.
Well, I mean, like you've always said, Jen, crying is just like emotional masturbation.
It is. I have said that, and I stand by it.
I don't disagree with you. I just think maybe there are different words you could choose to say the same message. But listen, I'm on board for it.
I called into a radio show one time to say that, and they made me say emotionally pleasuring yourself. But then the host was...
No, I got to dig into this more. Hang on. What radio? Hey, you're on the phone with Rush Limbaugh. Rush, what do you think?
I feel like it was more of a Howard Stern.
Yeah. No, it was the Burt Show. Do you guys remember the Burt Show?
Oh, I've heard of it.
Was this before or after he got rid of Ernie?
It was before. Yeah, Ernie was actually really cool. Yeah. I think he was pleasuring himself at the time that I was calling.
Bert. Hey, Bert.
No, the turn.
I know. It did.
I do love how this went from a crying is emotional masturbation to a Bert and Ernie sketch where Bert is jerking off while Ernie takes phone calls.
Yeah.
Guys, we're sitting on a gold mine. Woo. All right, can we get into this fucking movie?
Speaking of masturbation.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we start with a car wreck flashback.
Yeah. That you later find out was they got in a car wreck with a katana.
Yeah. I don't know what a katana is, but
a katana is a Japanese sword.
Ah.
Yeah.
So she's like doing the Lamaze breathing on the way to the hospital, and he says, I think it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And it's like right on her face, and you can't really tell that she's in a car, except that there's
you sort of can, but it's more like just because the glass is hitting her, you don't really see like physical stuff about the car around her.
But and I think it's because it's not actually a flashback. She's just reliving it in her mind. Because
it's just a dream. Well, she's like spinning and the glass is hitting her, and then she like is floating above her bed and then slowly gets lowered onto her bed. And then does her son wake her up? Like, is that like where it cuts to?
Yeah, jumps on her and says he has a bad dream.
Yeah, I had the dream again.
Yeah.
Right, and I was led to believe that it was the same dream she was having.
I'm not sure if it actually says that.
There's no indication of that. I mean, that's just me thinking that.
But he's having a bad dream, and so he wants to sleep with her, which
is a common thing amongst kids that age, right? I don't know. I don't have kids.
Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Dreams,
I'm asking. I don't know.
Room,
yeah. And so the next morning, he is like building weapons, and we just hear like sawing and like hammering.
Yeah, it's like a MacGyver montage of a kid building a sort of back-a-pult.
Yeah.
Which is a catapult on your back.
Backpack.
Yeah, it's a back-a-pult.
I mean, I was following you.
Yeah, you got it.
I didn't need an explanation.
It's also magic tricks. And this is like, I think he's he's a little cute.
He's 6.
At times.
Is he 6?
He's 6.
The whole like first 75% of this movie, he is not cute.
No.
Yeah,
No, I mean, honestly, you sort of understand why she wants to murder this child.
Yeah, he's very insufferable, but he has these little moments every once in a while when he's saying things like every time he said, nothing in my hands, nothing in my hands. I thought it was cute. I have a 6-year-old too, so I'm just, around a lot of it. And I kind of.
So do you think that you'd want to murder your 6-year-old if they acted like this?
Look, let me just say before we talk for the rest of the episode, I love my kids.
Right.
But it's hard to be a mom sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Mom
Right.
and ain't easy.
Even if you have a supportive husband.
Oh, yeah.
And
totally.
she does. I'm not saying that. I'm not downplaying you. I'm just saying she does it in this movie.
Exactly.
Like she's.
Yeah.
They're sweet and they're cute, but they say the same jokes over and over and over again. And I don't want to listen to Captain Underpants jokes anymore.
You know what? You know what, Jen? That hurts. That hurts my feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Rude. Wow.
You forgot about your other kid?
I know.
Todd.
She is the pod mom.
am the pod
That
mom,
is true.
I've had to listen to this goddamn evil goldfish noise
Oh, God.
20 fucking times.
I honestly don't do it ever unless you bring it up.
That's true. I know. I like the evil goldfish.
Are we going to take a moment to talk about just this child as an actor? For a second?
Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
Sure. Let's do it.
So there were just so many times within this movie where the kids' facial expressions took me out of the movie completely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Like when he
There's-
was screaming and stuff?
Maybe not so much that. There were just
Is it
some
'cause he's an ugly child?
expressions.
He's not an ugly child.
That.
I just hope he grows into his face.
Yeah, well, okay.
Lots of
I mean,
times
listen, I had to grow into my face too. And I just barely missed.
Yeah.
Like I almost got
You're
there.
almost there.
Yeah.
Todd.
We'll just
Almost
say
got
you're
there.
great on a
Maybe
podcast.
tomorrow.
If my nose would just stop growing. And ow, Jen.
They don't.
Ow.
I think it was sometimes just his eyes made it look like he was waiting for somebody to tell him he did a good job offset.
Yeah.
Like it just seemed like he was like, I did my line. Okay, what did you guys
Where's my
think
ice
about
cream?
it? That's what it felt like to me. And
Yeah.
it took me all the way out. Now, granted,
Yeah.
I'm also talking as somebody who didn't particularly like the movie.
Yeah.
But those were moments where I was just like, I just can't connect with this kid. I can't attach to anything with this kid.
I didn't notice so much that I didn't like him. And he is 6 too. So
Yeah.
that was probably part of it. But yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying. And sometimes I think his screaming was a little extreme. Like his facial expressions. Although I guess I appreciate that more than just a kid who stares and doesn't have any kind of expressions, but it was very over the top.
Saying this as someone who didn't like the movie either, I feel like he was fine. He's a 6-year-old, and it's really him and his mom's
Yeah.
movie. Like they're on the
Sure.
screen together 90% of the time.
Right.
And I think he did a fine job. I think she did a great job.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
he didn't take me out of it completely, but I do see what you're saying, Emily.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I see a lot of younger me in this kid because I too was also into like juggling and like destroying the VHS copy of Aladdin because I liked the beginning of it so much. So like, I mean, I probably made my mom specifically watch the opening monologue in Aladdin conservatively 300 times.
Yeah.
So we cut to Amelia in her nursing home job, and she's wandering around serving tea to people who don't remember ordering it.
Oh man, I thought it was so funny. Like,
yeah.
and the people who work in like nursing homes don't get enough respect
No, they
or
don't.
pay.
Or
So I just you immediately feel bad for her because she has lost her husband, has a little Todd, and he's like insane and crazy, and then she works in a place where she's like underappreciated,
Yeah.
and has really
Except for
offensive
Robbie.
dudes hitting on her.
Oh
Huh?
yeah, Robbie likes
Robbie, she's not
That's what I'm saying.
underappreciated by Robbie.
her. Yeah,
Robbie's problematic as a character.
I liked Robbie. He was
Yeah, I mean,
sweet.
I definitely liked his first line. I thought it was funny. She brought that lady her tea, and she was like, "Hey, I brought you this one fresh with milk or whatever, like just like you like it." And then she was like, "What?" and made her lean in. And she says it all again, and she goes, "I don't like milk." It was like the weirdest power move that an old woman could play. Oh man! And then you see her
that at
making another cup of coffee, and that's when Robbie orbs up on her and says, "Where a woman should be, in the kitchen."
Yeah, that was your favorite
And this
part.
is the person you like, Jen.
I like him because he was kidding. He laughed. Although I would not date
I
him.
got the kidding vibe from him.
I
Me
did
too.
too. He
I did
was.
too.
Yeah. Granted, my husband says that to me.
I mean,
Todd, let's talk about all the shit you have said tonight.
I honestly don't think we have enough time.
No,
I've
that's
secretly
true.
been recording this whole time, so I'll release it to the Patreon.
Yeah.
If you want
can't
to, if you
handle.
want to hear Todd's problematic hot takes, I mean, I'm joking when I say shit like
I know.
that.
And I think he is too, but I do think there's something to say that she's doing, like she is existing to care for all of these other people and she doesn't have any time for herself. She doesn't really have very much help.
She does find a little time for herself later the night.
Well, she
Yeah, yeah.
tries. We'll get there.
Oh my God.
She doesn't,
She
though.
doesn't get there. Yeah.
True.
All right. So she's at her nursing home job, just draining all her energy. And then she gets a call that the school needs to see her.
Yeah. While she's at work. So she goes to the school and the school administrator and the teacher
Right.
are like,
teacher.
hey, your son tried to kill someone with a makeshift crossbow
And a dart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is dangerous. I'll give him that. Although
Yeah.
that one lady is the Trunchbull, but I mean, she's got a point.
For
This
sure.
is
I don't think she's
dangerous.
quite that bad. Is that a Madeline reference?
Matilda.
Matilda, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she's that bad. She wants to protect her other kids.
Well, she didn't pick up any of the kids and swing them by their pigtails and throw them over the fence.
Or make them
so
eat a
she has
huge
that
fucking chocolate
going
cake.
for her.
I know, that's right. Which is good. So.
No, I mean, she absolutely, as a teacher, brings up valid points, though. The safety of all,
Yeah.
has
Right.
to be considered. But, the kids got problems.
But
Right.
it did seem like this was not the first time he brought like a backup Holt or a crossbow to school. So yeah, they more or less say that they're going to have to bring in someone to work with them one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then she's like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah.
And says, no, I'll just take him out of school.
Right. That is something that happens in school, and they're called paraprofessionals, and they're just their job is to stay with a student that has extreme needs all day long to kind of be the one-on-one helper. And I feel like if they had just said it in a way that didn't make her feel like shit, then that may have been a solution that could have been really helpful for him.
Right.
Because he clearly needs attention, and she is not able to give him all of this attention that he needs right now.
I also feel like she wasn't really in the space for anybody's words to hit her in a
True.
good way. I think she was kind of on that path of I'm going to do what I'm going to do, period. And that's
Right.
Yeah.
I also think she's sort of doing whatever she can do to get by every day because
Yeah, sure.
it's a struggle, man.
Right.
So what are they called?
Paraprofessionals.
Do they parachute in?
They do. It's real cool.
What?
Yeah.
That's why they're so expensive.
Or just hover like a Babadook.
Is the Babadook a paraprofessional?
That would be cool. All right. So she's at the school meeting. And let me tell you, I have been to these school meetings. There are a lot of things in this movie that happen that I was like, yeah, I've been there. Like, I've driven home with a screaming child in the back of my car.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, so they leave the school,
and so they go to a feel good playtime in the park.
Yeah.
And I
and this is where you meet the main character's sister.
Yes. And I was
Amelia,
cracking up
sorry.
at this kid just like fighting. This is one of the times I thought he was cute. He was just like flailing
Oh
around.
my gosh! How
fighting
many
things.
times did you see kids do this, or still see? Kids. It cracks me up. when
Dude,
kids are
that
like
was me until like 4 years ago.
100%.
Yeah.
Actually, that's how I found him in the front yard, Jen.
Yeah, because we got here a little bit before you, and I was fighting my Babadook by the tree outside.
Oh,
Yeah,
fighting your Babadook by the tree.
I just need a little personal me time.
And it
don't know.
does make you kind of wonder. I mean, especially with the timing of the husband's death and obviously the birth of the child being on the same day, it makes you wonder like what that actual process was like for her immediately following
yeah.
his death and the baby's birth. Like
I can't
the
imagine.
postpartum that must have been experienced and has clearly never really ended. That
Yeah.
must have been.
It seems horrible.
It's like the best thing and the worst thing in your life happening on the same day.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, because they talk about this time of year a couple of times. So
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder if the depression is cyclical to just that time of year or if it's something that she's actually battling pretty solidly throughout those 6 or
Right.
7 years. That's not completely made clear, but I kind of get the vibe that it's really cyclical and
Yeah.
happens.
Well, and the neighbor
That
says,
time of
I
year.
know this time of year is hard for
Right,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is though. Like if you've ever lost someone that's like super close to you, like a husband or a brother or a dad or whatever, it hits you that time of year every year.
Well, and I think it's made worse this year because he's not going to be celebrating his birthday party with his cousin.
Yeah.
And now it kind of forces you to do it by yourself because before it could be more like you're celebrating the cousin than you're
Right.
actually celebrating the kid, your own kid.
Or you
Right.
could celebrate your own kid on a different day.
Right.
And it's
Right.
not as painful.
Sure.
I totally get that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it kind of diverts some of that attention that you might have focused on the anniversary.
Yeah.
And I can understand the sister not wanting to do this. I feel like she's kind of a dick in this movie, but I can also see from her point of view, like this is 6 years she's probably been dealing with this.
Sure.
And she just wants her daughter to have her own birthday party.
Right.
You know?
What? Her daughter wants to have a princess party, and her
Exactly.
cousin,
Right.
you know, the main character's kid is a son. Like he's not going to want to have a princess party. So like, I do think they sort of position her as a dick and her friends as, you know, dicks who are like privileged or on some level or whatever. And I do like that dichotomy, and I like the way the main character handles it. Oh, you don't have enough time to go to the gym? That
that's
must be
so
hard
tragic.
for you.
Right.
You must have so much in common with those disadvantaged women.
Yeah, so
I loved that part.
I loved it too, but I mean, I do sort of feel bad for the sister too, just because she has had to put up with it for 6 years. But I do feel like she could be a better sister.
I think so too, because what she's really needing is this specific kind of help that she just is unwilling to get for herself. And I mean, you can't make somebody get their own help. You know,
No,
they have
you
to really
can't.
want
I mean,
to.
and it does push people away that are around you.
Right.
You know?
And we see her push people away, you know? One thing I really like about that is that it shows that this depression and grief is not just affecting you. Like if you live in the house with someone, that affects everyone in the house. And I think I've got some issues that I deal with, and it affects everyone in my family, you know? And so that's one thing I like about the son seeing it first and saying, don't let it in. And I think everybody sees it.
Anyway, so that's sort of what happens in that scene. She goes to her sister's place and they have that conversation. It's not the party yet, so that she hasn't told off her sister's friends because that happens later.
Right.
But at the first time we meet the sister, and it's actually at the park, I think.
Yeah, it is.
That's when the idea of the party being separated because the niece wants to do a princess party.
Yeah.
That's what that happens. And that's where Sam is like playing by himself and he's like, Mom, 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 Mom.
Mom, aren't you listening to my podcast? Mom.
Mom, like and subscribe. Mom.
Lois.
And then
Lois.
and then he climbs on top of the swing set.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to him standing on the top of the swing set. And then it cuts to him crying in the backseat of a car.
I absolutely appreciate that.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
100% motherhood.
Yep, I have been there. And you're just driving and there's nothing you can do because if you pull over, you're not going to solve the problem. It's just going to last longer.
Right,
Do you
yeah.
feel like she was being at all negligent, though? I feel like she looked away for 2 seconds and he was on top of that thing.
Yeah, partly. But I also feel
Do
like
you? Okay.
this kid is like
Yeah,
always at an 11
Yeah.
and you cannot watch him.
He's like
all the
Houdini.
time. Exactly. I had a student once whose mom was like, I just don't know how many arms he has. I don't know how
Aw.
he gets into all these
Sure.
things.
Because she was paying attention.
Yeah, she
was
was.
talking to her sister, and then 1 second he was on the ground punching the air, fighting a nothing, and then she looks away, talks to her sister, and then the next second he's on top of the swing set,
Right.
and presumably falls. You don't see that part, but you know.
Right.
Then they end up in the backseat of a car. Yeah,
implies.
yeah.
Yeah. Now I will say it is a little bit of a dick move for the sister to spring this on the mom within the week of the party. She's like, "Can I bring something on Wednesday?" She's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, forgot to tell
And
you."
you assume it must be a Monday at least if they were
Yeah.
at school just a moment ago.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think
right,
about that, but
you
yeah.
know?
And I mean, she's not uninviting them to go. It just
Yeah.
can't be
Sure.
her son's party, too. And you think
Yeah.
that if she's a single mom working and trying to care for a child, she's not going to really have a lot of time to plan her own party for the kid.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's got to be sort of a dick move.
Okay, so this is when they're going to bed and they read the book, and Sam gets to pick, and he picks this super creepy red giant book that
It doesn't
looks
look
like
that
one of my
creepy.
Stephen King books.
Yeah.
It does.
That no one has ever seen before in the
Yeah.
house. Can we talk about that?
How did the book get in the house?
It doesn't look super creepy from the outside. It just
It
says the
doesn't.
Babadook, and like it's red, and the Babadook is in black, and then you open it, and it looks sort of like a kid ghost book.
like a
That's like
pop-up.
almost like a Casper sort
It
of a
looks
thing.
a little bit like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The illustration style is a little more like it's
Sure.
black and white, it's pop up, you know, and it looks kind of innocent, but maybe a little spooky to begin with.
Yeah, the first few pages just look sort of fun and like
Right,
an
the
interesting
rhyming
story.
kinda catches
and then
you.
shit gets real on page 4.
Yeah. Now, I may be jumping ahead of myself, but I want to talk about this book for a second. So,
Yeah.
flash forward to the birthday party.
Right.
You know, she talks about how she's written and has written articles.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
she
a
wrote
child's
this book.
Yeah.
100%. Must have written it at some point in her mania.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and just forgot about it.
Right.
Because the whole movie, she's complaining about how she just needs to sleep and hasn't slept, but we've seen her sleep many times.
Yeah.
Right.
So she's Tyler Durden.
She's losing time.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. She definitely
So
read
she
it.
definitely
And then
wrote
when
this
she
book.
goes to the police station and she's got,
She's got the ink on her hands. Yeah. At that first reading of the book, was there any point where you were scared, Todd?
No, there was no scary stuff, except for just like, holy shit, being a single parent has to suck. Like that was the scariest.
Every bedtime.
Yeah, that was the scariest thing for me at that point.
Oh, this is when she's watching her basic cable and relaxing.
Yes.
Relaxing.
She's
What did you
watching
call it earlier?
What did I say? She's masturbating.
You even hear like the
That's key to all of this.
yeah.
Yeah, it is the key. Sorry.
Let's just say that her and her son are having two very different nights.
They are.
They're slightly different nights.
Yeah, because the Babadook is starting to haunt Sam, and she is starting to haunt herself. This chick knows what I'm talking about.
She can't quite get there though because Sam
know.
bursts in and jumps on the bed.
I think that was Todd's first jump scare.
I think it was too.
I think that was the mom's first jump scare too. Where's the off switch? Where's the off switch?
I'm not going to say I've had those moments because I haven't had exactly those moments.
Maybe slightly different moments.
Yeah, and there was a moment where he's hugging her and he's like touching the back of her neck and she's like, don't do that.
Right.
And I think it's a trigger because I think it's something maybe her husband used to do or something.
Yeah.
So I think we see like personal space is a thing.
Yeah.
And she's never escaping people that need her, you know?
Right.
And she can't, like, this is the one time that she's really trying to do something by herself,
For herself. Yeah.
And just like relax for a minute and she can't even have that. So.
Ain't nothing wrong with self-love.
No. All right. So the next day is bingo, which I think is really funny.
I do love the bingo scene
that is pretty
because
funny.
everyone is deaf as fuck and she's calling out these numbers. And it's funny because the number of numbers that she has pulled out of the spinner greatly outnumber the number of numbers that are in there. I think I said number too many times in that last sentence.
I like
You said too
But-
many numbers of
absolutely how
numbers.
many numbers
Yeah.
were said.
Anyway, there's like 50 numbers outside the spinny thing and 10 numbers in there, and no one's hit bingo yet.
I
So
know.
she knows no one can hear anything she's saying because they're all old and deaf. So she's just pulling out numbers. She's like, anyone have 5 billion?
Yeah.
Anyone have 5 billion?
And
No?
then she looks over and old man lady is like shaming her. Bingo,
Old man lady.
bingo shame.
Bingo lady.
And then we get to
Yeah.
see Robbie.
I know.
Yo, Robbie
Right.
is trying to get it.
He is. He's
He
like,
is
old man lady didn't like
macking.
your bingo skills, did she?
You know what I like though? Those bingos.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that Robbie wants a piece. I don't know if he's trying to hit and quit it. He might want to stay and play. I'm just saying that like he definitely is interested in her romantically.
Because
absolutely.
he says there's nothing wrong with not being okay, or it's okay
Yeah.
if everything's not okay.
Yeah.
And then he offers to cover her shift.
Yeah.
And then she just goes wandering around the mall.
She
and,
gets
like,
ice cream.
She does.
The second
She
time
has
for self-care.
exactly a little more self-care.
And if I've said anything, it's that ice cream is a good replacement for masturbation.
So she gets back in the car after this time. Oh, she's watching people making out in the car.
Oh,
I don't. So you make it sound like she's like leering at them across
Right.
the way.
Let's be
She was
real.
just getting in her car at
there
the
was
mall.
a little bit of leery.
There was.
I think it's more of a longing of missing that kind of
Sure.
relationship.
Contact.
Yeah.
Once they stop making out in that one little kiss and look up, she looks away and then leaves. It wasn't like she was there for minutes, got out her, Nimbus 2000 and, had a time. She
her little
just,
lipstick bullet.
Anyway, so she stops masturbating and drives away.
So have you noticed with these kind of things when she's having kind of these like fantasies and not necessarily sexual, but she's kind of lost in her thoughts and the music is playing and then all of a sudden when there's an awareness it just stops
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
Abrupt
Yeah,
ending.
and I do think she is sort of, maybe fantasizing isn't the right word. Maybe reminiscing is better.
Yeah, I think
about
fantasizing is okay. It's not really a sexual thing.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah.
I think she's just missing that sort of relationship. I don't think it's necessarily specifically her husband, though.
I mean, it could be a little bit of
Because
both.
I don't think she is non-responsive to Robbie.
Right.
I think she's just super depressed and
Yeah.
that
Right.
she's not super flirtatious, but she's not like blowing him off or anything.
Right.
Whatever. Sorry, go
Then
ahead.
she's missed 10 calls from her sister, and Emily said
Right.
that's every parent's worst nightmare.
Absolutely.
And yep, it's up there. So the sister has been watching Sam because he can't go to school because he got kicked out. But so he has been scaring the sister's daughter by just talking about the Babadook, and the niece's daughter is nice.
She's not great.
The sister's daughter is kind of a jerk, and she's like, "Yeah, nobody likes you. We don't see this yet, but they're just not very nice."
Honestly, we don't see any interaction with the two kids yet, the niece and Sam.
Right.
But we see Amelia picking up Sam.
Yeah, and he's sitting in the driveway.
Yeah. And the sister's like, he was just looking at the sky or looking at nothing and talking to the Babadook.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
scaring her and then scaring me also.
I mean, that
is
would
what
be
that
real
says.
scary.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
I didn't even like hearing about about it.
Right.
But when he starts doing it in the car, I don't think it's immediately. I think it's later. But when he starts talking to the Babadook in the car, I did not like that at all.
Yeah.
And it's not there. I mean, quote unquote, it's not there. You can't see it on film, but like it is eerie as fuck.
Well,
Is that when he has the fever convulsion? Is
I
it
don't
that
think it's
point
yet.
or is that
No.
later?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
But he is starting to see it and he's starting to talk about it and he's starting to hear it at night. And I think maybe if we're looking at this as a metaphor, like he knows it's getting to that time of year, even if he doesn't really, he's not aware of it, but he starts to see the signs starting to build up that his mom is about to let this thing in again. And so he's trying to like protect her, really. I just don't think he is old enough to really express that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they call it the Babadook.
Right, exactly.
It's because he doesn't know what depression is.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so this is when the crush does show up, Robbie. So he's got flowers and he's got a little
he's
model
super
airplane.
sweet.
Yeah.
Which
it
I don't
doesn't
know
come
if-
across creepy at all to me.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah. But he's
Robbie's the real MVP. Going after single mothers.
Yeah.
I know a lot of dudes that won't date people with kids.
using negs in the very first intro.
Oh,
line,
yeah. He
you
was
know?
like, get back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Works every time.
But no, I think he's a great dude. He brought
I
the
think so,
kid a
too.
gift.
Right. 'cause he was-
And he thought the kid was sick, right?
Yeah.
So that's like,
Because she had told him the kid was sick.
yeah. And he said, hey, every time I was sick, my mom would get me, wasn't it a model
A
airplane?
model
or something?
airplane,
Yeah.
which I don't get because that's probably the last thing I want to do when I'm sick.
Right.
But I mean, it's his
Or
thing.
ever. I don't
Yeah.
want to. Here,
I
put
don't
together this real complex puzzle that's probably above
Yeah.
your age group.
There's like a 1 in 2 chance that you're going to glue your fingers together.
And if I tell you that, you're definitely going to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like he's trying to like show him a little bit of his personality.
It's a
And,
super
you know.
classy move. Show
It
up with
is.
flowers for the mom and a gift for the son. You
Yeah.
are in like her Nimbus 2000.
Yeah.
And he just gave her the day off by covering her shift for her.
Oh,
too.
And not
yeah.
taking the pay for it. He wouldn't take the
Exactly.
pay.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sam immediately blows up her spot. Is like, I'm not sick, which is totally something a 6-year-old would do.
100%.
Well, I mean, it's not like he's programmed to lie. Nor
I know.
Did,
Plus,
nor
the
did
mom
she
didn't
tell
tell her
him.
the cover story. Yeah. And he's wandering around with a magician's cape on.
He's so out of sorts that the cape is down his front
That's true.
because he's just acting a fool. I mean, this kid is
Yeah.
probably, I was super hyperactive at that age. I'm still sort of am. So, like, that would definitely have been me. And I'm not going to confirm or deny that I was super into magic at a certain age in my life.
And so they start yelling at each other right in front of him too. They're like, "I'm not sick," and she's like, "No, he's just being real bad." And then he starts screaming at her like, "You hate me." She doesn't want me to have a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just kinda-
And Robbie's like, well, I didn't formally submit my application for dadship, but
Right.
Yeah, he's like slowly shrinks into a puddle on the floor and like
really say
herbs out.
goodbye to Robbie. You
No.
just see like her holding the flowers and the maybe some semblance of the door closing, and then no more Robbie.
yeah, I
That's
think
the
Robbie
last
just
stuff.
slowly
I know.
backs out of the room and never
Yeah.
talks to her again.
Exactly.
No
yeah.
more
And
Robbie.
I kind of give him credit for recognizing there are some bigger issues in here that I don't know if I'm going to help and
And not
just getting
stepping
out.
in and trying to parent that child.
Exactly.
I like that a lot. Because I don't know, maybe I wouldn't do this, but I could see douchebag dudes stepping in and being like, you don't talk to your mother like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he really just recognizes this is not.
This is not my fight.
Exactly.
I'm out.
Yeah.
See you at work. Bye.
Yeah.
Not my, not
Have
my
fun with your
circus, not
sick,
my
quote
monkey.
unquote,
Exactly.
kid. Yeah.
And let me also say, I am really happy that he doesn't show back up at the end and now they have a little happy family again.
Yeah,
like, I'm
sure.
glad,
Well,
you know?
Not to spoil it, because we're going to spoil the movie anyway, so it doesn't matter. The end of the movie is only like 2 weeks after the events that are going on right now.
Right.
I do think in a year, Robbie and her might be dating.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, but the movie doesn't go that far into the future. So
Right,
I
yeah.
like that he wasn't in it too.
Yeah.
But I still think he's an option in the future.
I do too.
Sure.
Yeah. The next thing is they're eating soup.
Dude, I thought it was more like yogurt. It had the consistency of hot snot, but looked like soup.
It
I don't
just looks
know.
like pureed corn.
It doesn't look
It
good.
does. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you realize that hers has shards of glass in it.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
his
this needs
has
a little
nothing
texture.
in it.
Right.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
So she cuts her lip or cuts her cheek or whatever on glass and then spits out the glass and then searches through the rest of hers and sees more glass.
Yeah.
And he's like, the Babadook made me do it. Or no, just the Babadook did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she gets real pissed and she's like, oh, I'll just make myself something else. Go watch your video.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
watches his Mr. Mysterioso video.
Did you also own that DVD?
No. I wasn't super into magic growing up. I was really into like comedies.
Got it.
So I would watch anything I thought was funny. I would watch 1,000,000 times.
Oh yeah, I did that
because
too.
I realized you could control your friends and family through humor. So I tried to be as funny as possible.
That's fair.
Girls
I
do
also
that
grew
too.
up in a household where my parents fought a lot, and I could diffuse things with
Escapism.
humor.
Yeah.
So like I learned that I could make people happy if I could make them laugh. So that's why I am as funny as I am.
Yeah. Fair.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah.
That's why, honestly, I think that's why the funniest people, I'm not saying I am one of the funniest people, but like a lot of comics end up killing themselves.
Oh, yeah. There's
is
a lot of
because
darkness.
they get to
Yep.
that level of funny because they've dealt with some really dark shit.
And
Right.
that's their way of coping.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
that's what I mean.
Or like shifting blame from it. Or
My
not blame.
stepdad, who I think is one of the best people in the world, posted a picture of this is what depression looks like. And it's like all these people who are like famous, like comedians and stuff who have killed themselves. But it was like them just like laughing and like
Yeah.
smiling. And like, I was like, shit, that's so true.
It really is.
But it
yeah.
was like Chris Farley and like,
Okay, and so let's talk about this too, because I think part of this in this movie is there's this aura about being a parent that it's supposed to be this natural, beautiful, perfect experience, and it's
Right.
not. Like there are a lot of great things about being a parent,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it's
yeah.
like, and I wrote a
Yeah.
blog about this because being a mom is hard, being a dad is hard. Like it's hard, and I feel like people don't talk about that enough. So there's this stigma, and I think that's why Amelia doesn't want to get help a lot of times because you feel like you're supposed to be this perfect mom, and if you're not, then it's your fault and you're a failure rather than just this is really hard. All kids are different. All kids have different struggles, and I just need help. You know.
so check out the blog at horrorversion.com.
Oh, yeah.
I
I'll
think that
link
one's
it.
called the Mama Dook Dook.
I think it is. It's actually called The Horrors of Motherhood, and it's that and Hereditary.
Oh.
I'll say this. And maybe I won't say this. I'll just ask this. Is probably the better way to say it. Is that something you put on yourself? Because I don't have kids, so like, but I know I don't know shit about anything. So like, I don't think I'd have trouble asking for help. But I also feel like, and this is sort of sexist, that because I'm a man, I'm not necessarily supposed to know everything, and I feel like society puts it more on women
Yeah.
to know everything.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that's fair. I'm just saying that's the way it is.
No,
so it
I
may
mean,
be
that's
easier for a man
an observation.
for
Yeah.
me to ask for help. I guess my question is, in a weird way of asking it, is that something you put on yourself or something that society puts on you?
It depends.
And
on
I don't know if it's not a little bit
Yeah.
of one, a little bit of the other.
And I think it's like different personalities. I tend to not ask for help a lot.
That's sort of what I was getting at.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
You know, at the birthday party, when you see like Amelia against the other moms, like all the other moms have the matching bags that the presents came in. All of them are wearing nice black outfits. You know,
nice fitted
it's
clothing.
Very,
like,
yeah, and it's very much a, them versus her.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's really
They're all
that-
standing. She's sitting down.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
there's so many pieces within that really separate her, out as she doesn't know what she's doing, quote unquote.
Yep. And I have been to those kind of parties, and I've had that experience at daycare. Like when my kid was screaming all the time, like I just wanted to get her into the car so people would stop hearing this screaming, because they were thinking I'm a terrible mom because I
Right.
can't get my daughter under
No,
control.
that's 100% what you think.
Right.
Is it what you think? That's
gosh,
insane.
yeah.
Because to me, like, okay, so if I was at that daycare picking up my kid, or I just happened to be in the area and I oversaw that, I would be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
that sucks.
Right.
I'd hate to be that mom right now or whatever. I wouldn't be like, oh, what is wrong with that mom?
Well, and
But maybe
most of them
that's-
didn't,
Yeah,
and we
like-
just weren't really that connected. And it was partly because I wasn't really connecting with these people because I was afraid they were going to think I was a bad mom. And there was a couple of years later when that happened with my son, and I got like 3 texts on the way home, like, you're doing a good job. You did the right
Sure.
thing. I've been there. And it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
a hard thing to reach out for in that moment, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Well,
if
that's
you
an
see
interesting thing to point out within this too, because the only calls you ever really see her get are the 10 from her sister about something being wrong. She doesn't really ever get anything that's super supportive,
Right,
other
or
than
from the
people-
school.
right? Absolutely,
Yeah.
other than the neighbor actually physically coming by, you know. So it's yes, people are checking in, but maybe not in the way that she is hearing it.
Okay, so this is when she finds the picture that's scratched out.
Holy
On her
shit.
bed, remember
Oh
that?
yeah, so she goes upstairs and she sees Sam running out of her room.
Yeah.
And then she goes into her room and sees the picture where where it's like her and her husband, Oscar, and Oscar's face is completely scratched out, and her like
hers
mouth
is too.
Yeah,
is like
her
scratched
mouth.
out.
It's
Yeah, it was like her mouth.
or
Yeah.
chin. Yeah.
Which is, if you notice, that's where she's like rubbing her
Always.
face. Anyway, so she like runs over to his room where he just ran back to, and he's wearing his backpack or his backup pulse. And anyway, so he's like ready to fire it at her more or less, and she's just like, "What did I tell you about wearing that?" And he's like, "Do you want to die tonight?" Or like whatever. I'm like, "Oh my god."
Yeah. It just got real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she takes his backup bolt and his crossbow.
Yeah.
And then he like pushes her to the ground. 6-year-old getting frisky.
And I think the first time I saw this, it struck me as weird. But I think now that I'm looking at it, like he feels like he's trying to protect her from the Babadook. And I think he's trying to get her to take this seriously. Like this is an actual threat. And she just keeps saying, no, stop imagining this, you know?
Yeah. I think she at this point is repressing it, but he can see the signs of it and knows because it's the time of year it's coming.
But he's 6, so he doesn't know how to say it, and he doesn't know exactly what she needs because she doesn't need him to yell at her. I don't know exactly what she needs, but he just recognizes there's a problem.
Therapy.
My mom's, something bad's going to happen. He keeps saying, I don't want you to go away. It's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, he really associates that as two different people.
Yes.
Mom in a good way and mom not in a good way.
Yep. And let me tell you, I have been yelling at my daughter, and she has looked at me and says, I just need my mommy, like looking straight in the face. And I think it was around the time I watched this, and I just started crying and just went and wrote a blog about it.
Yeah.
But
Check it out on the website at horrorvirgin.com under the title Mama Dook Dook.
I'm going to have to rename
You're going to
it
have
Mama
to
Dook
tag
Dook.
it.
You don't have to rename it.
Mama Dook Dook. I do like that though. So now she goes and throws the book away. She rage tears it up.
She doesn't just throw it away. She tears it up and throws it into the trash, into the bin. Oh, they call it the refuse.
Into the bin.
Yeah.
So she throws the book away, and then we get the birthday party where we just got
The princess party, right?
princess party.
Yeah. And we've sort of talked about this a lot, so you sort of know what happens here, except for Sam was holding on to Amelia in the scene where the sister and the sister's friends are sort of silently judging her.
Yeah.
Or they're like nicely judging her. They're being nice to her face, but judging her subtly, if that makes sense. Anyway, so
It's
Sam.
like backhanded niceness.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Backhanded compliments, sort
Isn't
of.
she trying her hardest?
Oh, and I work with a lot of disadvantaged women. They don't say like you, but it's very heavily implied.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sam is holding on to her, and then she kind of gets Sam to let go and go play.
Go play right now, which to me was like, I can't let them see that you need me this much.
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, so he leaves and goes up into the treehouse.
And he's just minding his own business in the treehouse, like being sad.
It looks like he's literally just like, I'm going to stay here until my mom's ready to
all
go. I'm going
done.
to stay out of trouble. It's whatever. I just don't want to cause any problems. And then the niece. She goes up there and is like, your daddy didn't love you. That's why he died.
Yeah, he
Like,
didn't want to be around you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, your mom doesn't love you either. Nobody likes you.
he's just sitting there with his arms in his knees
Right.
or around
Fetal
his knees,
position S.
Yeah.
asking her to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And she just keeps like being the meanest woman in the world.
Yeah.
Standing next to the open face of the treehouse.
What could go wrong?
I know.
So he gets up and Lisa pulls her out the
His next invention.
the treehouse. Yeah. And she falls and breaks her nose in 2 places. I'm not saying she deserved it, but she was being a little miserable.
Oh, yeah. She was not trying to make any friends in that treehouse.
Right.
So the birthday party's over now. And this is when he's driving away and he's looking at the Babadook who's in the car that we can't see.
Yeah, this was the beginning of the eeriness.
Yeah. And he starts screaming and then he starts having a seizure.
Yeah.
And she pulls over and she's like, I just need some help. And so they go to the doctor. And so she does ask for help at that. She does ask for help at that point.
Yes.
But it's because it's such an immediate need. And I think a lot of it is just like relief too. Like she's asking for relief help, not actual like dealing with the problem helps, because she is asking the doctor, I just need like a tranquilizer.
He was hesitant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at first he's just like, let me get you a psychiatrist or whatever. It usually takes about a week to get an appointment. And she's like, I need something now.
Yeah. I haven't
Right.
slept.
We've seen her sleep.
Yeah.
Now, I realize that she's in a manic... She's Tyler Durden in Fight Club. Like, she's going back and forth between being mom and Mama Dook. So, like, she doesn't feel like she's sleeping, even though we have seen her sleeping, if that makes sense. But anyway, so she sort of convinces him to give her tranquilizers for the kid.
Do you notice how much his behavior improves after he's slept himself? He's a totally different and, dare I say, likable kid.
That is kind of when the
he's
shift
gotten
happens.
to sleep.
Because there's a point where you're really on her side,
Right.
and then you switch over to being more on his side. And I think you're right. It's right when they've finally been able to sleep. But this is when they have the conversation when he says, "Why don't people like me?" And it was really sad.
It
She's
is.
like, I like you. And this is, I think, the closest they have had to actually having this kind of honest conversation with each other, you know? Yeah. And he's like, "I don't want you to die." And she said, "I'm not going to die for a long time." And then he said, "Well, did you think Dad was going to die?" And no. And so I think it just shows he is understanding what's happening and he needs to deal with it too.
Right.
This is when she asks him not to bring the Babadook up again. And he doesn't for a long time. Then she goes down and I think the book knocks on the door and is on the porch when she opens up. So the book came back.
And it's changed.
has.
It's been taped together and there are new pages talking about how you can't get rid of the book or whatever.
Yeah. And showing pop-ups of her killing the dog.
Yes.
Killing the kid.
Yes, and then killing herself. Yeah.
Right. So after the book comes back and she throws it on the Barbie.
The Bobby.
Throw another book on
And
the
then
Barbie.
when she does go to the police station and all the ink is on her hands, so clearly it's like, she spent the entire night writing all these new pages, all that ink's on her hand, Yeah.
Okay, so she's got roaches crawling all over the place and she's like moving all over furniture and scrubbing and then bing
She's
bong.
cleaning. Yeah, I mean, she's just fixing the problem. She's being a responsible adult.
Which
Yeah,
is
there's nothing wrong
good.
with it.
But now social workers are at the door.
Right, because some fucking tattletale at the school is like,
I know.
she took her son to school and whatever.
Yeah, I'm worried about this child.
Yeah.
Well, now you're worried about the child. So the social workers are there and Sam runs in and says, "I'm just so tired from all the drugs Mommy gave me."
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% something kids would say.
Oh, yes, totally.
I mean, he's just an honest child.
He is,
Although, in
yeah.
all fairness, like she has a prescription. She's using it the way it should be used.
Right.
Like she's
But
doing
she
nothing wrong.
says, It's
but
not
that is
drugs, it's tranquilizers,
Yeah.
which is not better. And then she's like, "There are roaches in my kitchen." And that's when she goes in and she finds out the hole in the wall is gone and that she's just crazy.
Yeah.
To their credit, they say, "I think we've caught you at a bad time.
Right.
We're going to be
Yeah.
back in a couple of days."
Here's my card. Here's the paper with choices of schools on
Right,
it or whatever,
yeah.
because he needs to get back into school, right?
Right.
And honestly, I think they're fine. They're just
Yeah.
doing their job. One of them has a very unfortunate face,
Yeah.
so they're just doing the best they
Just
can
like-
with the face their God gave them.
Inexplicably looks like a fish and a bird at the same time.
Like Phineas from Phineas and Ferb.
Yes.
That's the vibe I got.
They went back to their woodpecker home and left them alone. Honestly, so if her hair wasn't pulled back as tightly as it was, I think it would have been fine.
I think so too.
I think
yeah.
it's because her hair was pulled so tightly into that ponytail, it was stretching her face so much
It wasn't
that it pushed her
aggressive.
nose out.
I don't think it was a ponytail. It was an aggressive
Like
French
a-
twist.
Yeah, French twist going on.
I've been a man my entire life, so I can't help you with this
Did you
conversation.
have long hair for a while?
Yeah, I didn't put in a French twist. I had hair that was past my waist.
Shut up.
Yeah, I was a rock and roll drummer that sang all the high notes.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Wangy boy.
Wanga blanka. How you doing, ladies?
I try to work that into my daily conversation.
Winky blinky.
It's a great
Do you
one.
do it?
It really
I mean, I
is,
do
yeah.
do it often.
It's taken over. Oh,
I think
wang
it's
it,
fine.
Guys, if you out there do the winky blinky to people, first off, I want to apologize if you get the cops called on you. Secondly, let us know. Tell us on socials.
Yeah.
I really want
Oh
to
my
see.
gosh, I just
even
want-
better, turn your phone on selfie mode.
Yes.
Do a winky blinky at me and tweet it at us.
Oh my gosh, all
I
the gifts.
want it. I want a super cut of winky blinkies.
All right, so this is, I think, one of the scariest parts of the movie because Amelia's gone to sleep and Sam's sleeping in the bed too. She hears the noise and then she lets the dog in and then she hears another noise and she sees the door open and she sees
man.
Babadook hands creeping in and then she gets under the covers and she sees him inky up on the ceiling. And if you notice, you never see like a really clear look at him, and every time you see him, he either looks like black ink or he looks like that illustration. You know, and I love how they did
the
that.
effects don't look good at this point.
No, I think they intentionally look. I think it's a choice to make them look the way they look because I think they're supposed to look like the book.
I get that.
I think it was the way the motion on the ceiling was. Like,
Yeah.
not that I need it to be perfectly smooth, but it just was so different than everything else.
Yeah, I didn't
And
like
it was stop
Yeah.
motion is the
Right.
way they filmed it.
That makes sense, but it's
Yeah.
it's jarring and not like in a that's creepy. It was was jarring and like that doesn't look great.
I didn't notice it looking bad, but I was also like getting the feels because this
It's
is
also different for you because you're looking through tears and I'm looking through clear eyes.
That's
full
true.
hearts. Can't lose.
can't lose. Yeah.
Nailed it.
But this is when Babadook goes, gets inside her. And I don't think I noticed that at first either. The first
What?
time I watched this, that he like went into her mouth.
I feel like that fully meets the metaphor.
Yes, this is when she has let the Babadook in.
Yeah.
And he's inside her. And that's when we start to see she gets a little more manipulative with her son.
Oh, she starts to cuss at him?
Yeah.
I just want food. Well, why don't you go eat shit?
Oh, dude.
It's like,
yeah.
good Lord.
And she calls in sick, and she's been taking a lot of time off. And
I got a bad case of the duk.
Yeah, and you can hear her arguing with the person, and she just wants to sleep, and she's just really tired all the time. And that's a very clear sign of depression.
Oh, my God.
So she's calling in sick, and this is when the son, he comes and he says, I really just need some food. I need
Yeah,
you
the
to help
tranquilizers
me.
make me feel sick. I don't have anything in my stomach, and
And
the
you said
fridge is
I need-
empty because she like unplugged it to clean behind it.
Right,
So
right.
I get that. But like,
Yeah.
can you make me some food, please? I'm 6. I don't know
Yeah.
how ovens work.
Right.
Why don't you eat shit? It's like, good Lord, you went from sleepy to 11 real quick.
Yeah, it's sad, but I can understand, when you just need to care for yourself and somebody needs your attention. It's just hard.
Yeah, I
you know?
remember
Yeah.
being a kid. It was shortly after my parents had gotten divorced, and my parents are wonderful. Even
That wasn't your
with
fault.
them, I've heard. Even with my parents being divorced, I had a really great relationship with both of them.
Yeah,
but
me
I
too.
remember a couple of times that my mom, in her state of whatever she was dealing with, I remember a couple times, telling her like, "Hey, Mom, you forgot to feed us dinner," and her absolute panic of, "Oh my God," because you just get so caught up in your head and what you're dealing with, and just the absolute like heartbreak she felt making that realization that she had forgotten about us, that night. I mean, it is that's sad, and that's a hard reality.
Yeah.
So my mom had 4 kids. When I was 4, my parents got divorced and she had to take care of all of us. And man, like I had no idea all the shit she was going through.
Right.
My mom's like a superhero in my mind because of that. Because like my dad was a great dad. He was not a great husband, if that makes sense. He wasn't a great dude. He was a great dad. He became a great dude after he went to therapy when my brother died. But like my mom, he wasn't paying child support for large portions of the time. And she was like a badass. I grew up in the shittiest house I've ever lived in. It was super small, but I thought it was big because I was 4. I had no idea. And she like was awesome.
Right.
I had no idea we were poor as shit. I had no idea I was wearing clothes that people from the church had given us. Like so like I'm sure she went through shit like that.
Yeah.
And I bet if you asked my older siblings, they probably saw that kind
More
of
Yeah.
aware of it.
But I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I think
at
it was
all.
probably the same for me and my sister because I was 7 years older. My parents got divorced when when I was 10.
I was 4.
Yeah.
So
She was
yeah.
3.
Yeah.
You just don't remember. But right around the age of Sam right now, I mean, he's fully becoming aware of what his mother is going through.
Like minutes later is like, I just told my son to eat shit. And so she goes and apologizes and she's trying to like just bribe him to start like to forgive her.
We can go. I forget. It was like a
Wally's.
restaurant. Yeah, we can go to Wally's.
Which
and we
I
can get
imagine is
anything
like
you want.
McDonald's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like McDonald's. Because we see like the inside of it. So
Yeah.
and he's eating or just drinking his drink or something.
And then they're driving back and they see the Babadook in the car again. And she sees it this time, I think.
She sees it come up onto the top of it from behind the car in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And this is like, she's just like swerving all over the road and then eventually hits that dude's car.
Yeah.
And he gets out of the car and is like yelling at her like, what the fuck? I just bought this car.
And you're doing this with your child in the car too, which is just like twisting the knife. And I love that she just drives away.
She's just like, well, fuck you then. I'm out. Fuck this shit. I'm out.
Yeah. And this is when like I started to feel when I was watching this movie, like what else can happen? Like how much shit is she going to have to deal with? Because this is when she just is sitting with all her clothes on in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Dude, that is insane.
Yeah.
She looked crazy AF at that moment.
And I feel like 2 years older, this kid would have said, okay, this is where I noticed that there
Right.
is a big problem.
But instead, he
you
gets
know?
picked up and put right in.
yeah, so he walks in there and is like, hey, what's
are you
happening right
doing?
now? And she's like, hey, join me in the tub fully clothed.
Right.
And so later that night, she hears whispering and she hears noises. And I thought it was going to be the Babadook again, but it's Sam on the phone calling
Yeah.
Mrs. Roach, who's the neighbor from next door, and saying, we just need to stay with you. And we don't really hear what he's saying, but it's not
something like that, yeah.
Right. And it's not like my mom is the worst. It's we need help.
Well, I don't think he has the words to describe what is happening other than I don't know what's happening. Can you help me, please?
Yeah.
And it could be, for all he knows, something in the house, not something in his mom. I mean,
but this is like, this is the night where things get crazy.
Yeah, this is the night.
Yeah.
So she comes down there, like, I specifically told you not to call anyone. Why did you call someone? You disobeyed me. And then she hangs up the phone. I guess she'd already hung up the phone, but she puts it back on the thing.
Takes the batteries
and then
out.
takes the battery. Yeah, that's right. And then she grabs the knife and cuts the phone cord. Yeah.
But it's not clear what she's going to do for a minute. She's just saying, "What is this? What I'm going to have to do to keep you from embarrassing me with our neighbors?" So it's more about the appearance of her being a good mother. So she goes and she cuts the phone cord. She's like, "I'm going to make sure nobody gets into this house at all tonight."
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
She had to go through and lock windows and lock doors. Okay, whether Jacob's home or not, everything is locked.
Exactly. I don't even answer the door.
No.
Yeah.
That got
And
me.
we have a peephole.
I mean, I wouldn't answer my door. Like, why?
Exactly.
What?
Nothing good happens.
Yeah, I've listened to My Favorite Murder enough that I'm going to stay sexy and not get murdered.
Exactly.
So y'all can hug a dick.
Also want a cookie. This is when she's sitting on the couch and she's watching TV and she's not sleeping and she's starting to look just rougher and rougher by the second. And she has this vision of her son laying and he's
Dead,
been
like stabbed to death. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she says, "Samuel, Samuel, Samuel." And she sees him and he's actually not there. He's perched on the couch.
On the edge of the couch,
and
scared as
she's
fuck
got
because,
the knife. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, it was intense.
He's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like holding the knife very aggressively.
Yes.
Like she's about to stab something.
Yeah. And she realizes it and she quickly goes and puts it away. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think this is when she gives him the big ball of ice cream with the medicine. Because I'm not exactly sure when this happens, but he has said, "I don't want to take this medicine. I don't think this is going to make anything better. I don't need this." And she's like, no, you have to. You have to.
You have to get sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Meaning I have to get relief from all of this. Yeah. But she can't sleep. She's sitting and she's imagining or dreaming that she's watching the news and a mother has stabbed her son. And then we see her face in the window and she just looks so creepy.
Super creepy. Yeah.
I think she's investigating noises or something and she goes down into the basement and she sees her husband.
Yeah. She sees Oscar down there.
Yeah, so all the parts where the husband comes into it, that was also a point when I originally watched it and still on this watching. I don't think it's necessary.
So I read a little bit about this and they said that her state is supposed to represent the 5 stages of grief. And I think this is supposed to represent the bargaining phase.
Yeah, because he's like, "Bring me the kid and we can be together." Yeah.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's necessary at this point, but I think at the end it is. And we can get to that. But yeah, it just makes me sad.
That little bit of hope.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not real. Like, it's not real. It's not. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And it's just a delusion. But yeah, she sees him and he says, "Bring me the boy," which is like, if you kill him, then you can kill yourself and we can be together.
Yeah. She's so depressed at this point. The only thing keeping her alive is that she has to care for this child.
Exactly.
That she sort of resents, maybe not specifically for that reason, but she does resent the child.
Because she can't, there's nothing else she can do. She has to. And so then she comes back up and the lights start to flicker. So she runs up to her room. And this is the point in the movie where I stopped it and I started to cry. And I cried for like 10 minutes. And it was like real good, like cathartic crying, because every time something was dropping around her and it was like the hat and then the jacket.
Well, this is because she starts to see the Babadook. That's why she runs upstairs.
Exactly.
Because she's trying to get away. She pins the chair on the other side of the door so it can't get to the door. And then it starts to come down the chimney in the bedroom.
Right.
So you see the hat drop and she's trying to crawl back to the door. You see the jacket drop. Yeah.
So as I was watching this was what I was projecting onto this, was that hat was like the note I got from daycare. And the jacket was like when one of my kids was sick. And this thing was another time a teacher yelled at me. And it just was like everything, thing after thing after thing. And you can't escape. And it's just taking over. And so I stopped it and I had this really good cry and it was nice. And then I carried on with the movie. But I was really grateful for that like real cathartic experience. And that's part of why I love this movie so much. It just got me, you know. And this is when he gets in again. And he gets in, I think, from the back. And so she starts just no, this is when she gets the dog.
Yeah, well, from this point on, until she throws up the Babadook, the vomit duck.
The Babadook.
Yeah, she starts to even move strangely. She's starting to move like the Babadook does. The dog comes in and starts barking at her, and then she chases the dog, picks it up, and strangles it.
Yeah, yeah, and we've seen a scene where she was just sitting and holding the dog and crying.
Right, and the dog didn't like it too much.
Right,
at that
yeah.
one point too.
Yeah.
the dog's onto her.
Yeah,
I hate this so much. It's hard for me to see dogs die.
this
man.
is the one thing I would have taken out of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it needed that.
So yeah, she kills the dog.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little dog too. I just felt so bad.
I
for
know it is, yeah. And so this is when she starts chasing Samuel down, and she is like because he's locked himself in a room, and she grabs the top of the door frame and starts like kicking it in, and it reminded me a lot of Hereditary.
Well, because she's got like unnormal strength.
Yeah.
It's not like impossible, but it's like that's not common.
Not characteristic.
Yeah.
Right. And I think part of the metaphor is she really is not herself.
Oh yeah, I definitely do think she is possessed by the Mama Dook.
The Babadook. I like that. So she breaks down the door and
he shoots her in the arm with his crossbow.
Yeah, and she's like, and just takes it out, which another thing, I think she's not feeling pain the way she normally would.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, she does wince in pain, and then
that's true.
he hits her with the back-a-pult with that cricket ball, and then he runs past her, and then they go downstairs, and this is where the neighbor comes over, right?
But before the neighbor gets here, she says she wishes that he was the one who had died.
That's what they're arguing about.
And then she thinks sometimes she's going to smash his head against a wall.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then we hear a knock at the door.
Yeah.
And they have been yelling. There's no way. I mean, there's not really an indication of this, but there's no way that neighbor didn't hear what at least that they were yelling at each other.
Also, she probably tried to call back and realized the phone line had been cut.
Yeah.
Too.
True.
So she walks over, knocks on the door, and says, "Hey, I just didn't like the way our conversation ended before," or whatever she says. It's very sweet and supportive.
And I just want you to know I'm here for you.
And I'm not going to talk about Oscar because I know you don't want to hear about it, but I'm here for you. I want to help.
Right.
I really love you and Sam. It is like the sweetest thing to ever happen in a super serious, scary moment.
I know.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's almost a reprieve from like the
And for her to not get killed is kind of amazing. You know, because really, like in horror movies, the neighbor would have been dead by now.
Oh, when she comes back in that room and she's like, "Hey, I just talked to the neighbor and we're going to go stay there." The mom comes back in and is saying this to Sam. I thought for sure the door was going to be open and we were going to see the neighbor dead.
Yeah.
I thought for sure we were going to see that. That's not what happens though.
No, right.
But she is not telling the truth and Sam can tell, so he stabs her in the fucking leg and runs.
Right.
And he runs down into the basement, and because in the news footage we saw earlier, that's like the dream news footage, it says that the 6-year-old boy was stabbed in the basement. I was like, oh, here we go. Everyone's fucked. Because she just strangled the dog.
Yeah, and
that was also alluded to. Yeah.
I want you to meet your dad. Like we can be happy there together. And I think for a minute I thought she had kind of had one of those moments where she realized what she was doing and she was trying to apologize, but no, she was about to kill him.
Yeah.
And he saw it, and he saw it, I think, quicker than I did.
Right.
He stabbed her in the fucking leg. Well, he got the script before you did. It's
That's
fine.
true.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hurt yourself.
And he had that person standing right behind her saying, "This is what happens."
There's that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also at the very, very beginning of the movie, when he first is playing down in the basement, he's prepping that little.
Oh yeah, because it's Home Alone.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, he Macaulay Culkin.
Now
it
he's
up.
about to do all those things, you know.
Right.
So now it's about to all happen.
Yeah, and because she trips down the stairs and gets knocked out, and then she wakes up and she's tied on the floor of the basement.
Well, okay, so she doesn't trip down the stairs and get knocked out. There's like a bunch of traps and stuff that she falls victim to.
Yeah.
And then he hits her with a cricket bat and
Oh,
knocks
that's
her
right.
out.
Yeah.
So he has to knock her out, and then he has to tie her up.
Yeah.
And it's a 6-year-old tying these knots, so they're not super tight.
and she gets out of them.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're like having this conversation where she's all tied up, and he says something like, "Oh, you promised to protect me, and I promised to protect you," or something like that.
Yeah, and
it's super sweet.
Yeah, and this is what made me cry. He said, "I know you don't love me. It's because the Babadook won't let you love me, but I love you."
But I love you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just, I know. I just like to think that my kids will like understand.
Yeah.
You know?
Anyway, so he gets close enough, and she gets free enough to be able to strangle him, and she starts strangling him.
Yeah.
And then he reaches out and like tries to touch her face, and,
And we've seen him do that at the beginning of the movie. Yeah,
And then she decides
and she
that
throws him off. Yeah.
she's not going to kill her child, and she's going to throw up.
Yeah, so she screams a lot and she's sobbing and screaming and trying to escape, but he's like forcing her to confront this. And so she turns over and she just vomits out all this black ink.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought this was going to be like not like the end of the movie. I thought there might be like a few end scenes that sort of explain what happened, sort of like it happens in the movie,
Right.
But because she carries carries him upstairs and they like leave the basement together. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's a dead duck. Like it's done or whatever. But then she puts Sam down on the steps and he's just sitting there and she's at the front door and he goes, it never leaves.
Yeah.
And then it drags him, or you don't really see it, but you see him just get dragged up the steps into her bedroom. And shit's still popping off.
It is, yeah. And I like this too, because what she needs to do, and this is when I do like that the husband is there, because they go up and the wall is all black and it's almost like beyond. And so the husband is walking forward and she's crying and he says what he says in the car. And she is reliving this and she's actually confronting what she has been repressing for so long. And I think
because she specifically blocked out the visualization of him dying, which she definitely saw, and you get to see. That's why I said they got in a car wreck with a katana,
right?
Because his head got cut off, or like the top of his head got ripped off, and you get to see that. Yay! It was freaky.
But if you're thinking about this in the therapy metaphor, like this is the confronting of the instigating issue, and this is the acceptance phase. You know, this is when this did happen. This is really hard.
But okay, so like speaking as someone who like has been in a car accident where my brother died, I pulled my brother out of the truck. Like that is something that I had blocked out because it's just fucking rough.
Right.
And then I was in therapy for a while after it happened, just to sort of not even really get over it, but like be able to talk about it and like not let it destroy your life. Like it's different. I think it's probably different when it's your husband. I'm not trying to downplay that, but like,
well, no, but it's
that's
the
rough.
same
Like,
element.
I mean, so
I think
it is something that is completely different.
So the husband gets his head cut off and pops down to the floor and gets dragged off. And then we see the Babadook coming back. And this is when I think because she has confronted what has happened and she's looked at that and acknowledged it, she is able to now say, you can't get in. And she is screaming it a lot. But I feel like I was watching
She
this.
really is just having a screaming match with the Babadook.
Right.
So it's her and the Scream-a-Dook-Dook. And they're just yelling at each other.
She's the Scream-a-Dook-Dook.
Yeah. So she has achieved her final form.
Right.
The Scream-a-Dook-Dook.
She's all of the overtones and everything in the audio.
But yeah, so like she is at this point saying, I'm not going to let my grief consume me. I'm going to make it about me and my son.
And I'm not
going
to let it consume my family too. I'm not going to let it hurt my son.
And he gets off the bed and stands directly behind her, is like holding on to her behind her, which I liked that a lot. I don't know. I didn't love this movie. I didn't love this scene because I thought it was super ham-fisted.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there was a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So that's,
I like it. I like it in my face. Like, I like that it's this clear because I think, like, I've been in denial about a lot of this shit. And sometimes I just really need to see it real blunt, you know, and that's part of why I really like it this way. But yeah, I mean, I can understand why people feel a little beat over the head by the metaphor, you know, and I think I could see that being a weakness to some people. I personally just didn't really bother me. But also because I was sobbing the whole time.
Yeah, you were seeing through tear-filled glasses.
It was, yeah. But I think we see it one more time, and it shines a light on her face, and then it flutters down to the basement door.
So when it goes into the basement door, it goes by itself to the basement, closes the door, and then there was a door like literally in the house, in the pod loft, that closed like 3 seconds after the basement door in the movie slams, and that scared the fuck out of me.
It was definitely a little bit of pause for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I was like, what is that?
So, and I didn't look down the stairs because every once in a while my daughter will just kind of creep up the stairs a little bit, and there was nobody there, but the door was swinging open. And so I went down the stairs to close it, and the garage door is right on the other side of this hallway, and it just slowly swung open on me. And I was like, holy shit. But it was my husband. He was just
Babadook.
Babadook. Nice. Babadook. This is the birthday party. She gets home. She's still got her job. Sam is with Mrs. Roach, and
is that the lady's name is Miss Roach?
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. And there are roaches.
Maybe that's the roaches trying to get in and help her.
Yeah. They're not an enemy.
There you go.
But so they're talking about Sam's birthday party, and
because he's having his own birthday party.
Exactly. And the social workers are sitting on the couch and talking to them, and suddenly realize that there are gigantic birthday party decorations right in their
weird.
face. And like, oh, but they're talking about schools, and she's chosen a school for him to go to.
Yeah, she even says she's done some research and she picked the school she wanted him to go to. So she is a much more engaged mom at this point.
Yeah, she's getting it back together. And then they say, oh, you're having a birthday party. And then Sam says, it's the first time I've ever had it on my day. And this, I think, is significant significant because she is the one to say, my husband died on the way to the hospital, you know, and she just says it. And because the whole movie, she has not wanted to talk about it at all. And anytime anybody would bring it up, that's when she starts to get real defensive or upset. And the social workers are like kind of thrown off a little bit because it's just a hard thing to talk about.
Right.
You know,
I mean, where do you go from there?
Exactly.
Talking to anybody.
It seems like they're accepting it and they're moving on. And then they go out into the backyard and I can't tell if this is just the whole birthday party, which would make sense.
I really like the end montage, if you can call it a montage, because it shows like the steps she's taken to maybe not be better, but start the steps to get better.
Yeah.
Because it's like it starts off with her. She has to have asked for help because Miss Roach is watching Sam, right? And then she's taken responsibility for her kid's life by doing research. And she's talking
she's
about
working with the social workers instead of trying to push them out.
Right. And she's talking to them about what happened. So it's her owning the narrative and not just being owned by it. Right. And I do think because she told Miss Roach that the party wasn't until 3, that they're just sort of waiting until 3.
Yeah.
So they're out back because there are decorations out back and they both have like a little like half a sandwich or whatever they have. But there are a bunch of them there. I just got the idea that it was like maybe 30 minutes before the party was going to start.
Sure.
Yeah. And they're just having their little time together.
Yeah. And he wanted to show her a magic trick, which
Yeah.
is the best magic trick a 6-year-old's ever done.
Dude,
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Excuse me. 7-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My apologies, Sam. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, buddy. But that bird comes out of nowhere and the coin disappears.
That's magic.
That is pure
Yeah.
magic.
A trick is something a whore does for money, Michael.
I am illusionist. I've made a horrible mistake.
Oh,
So
I
good.
try so hard. Yeah. And so she's gardening and she pulls the worms out. And I think this is the part of the movie that I love the most.
Really?
Yeah. Because she goes down and she's in the basement and she sees all the logs. And I think just the metaphor of this just speaks to me. And so she goes down and she says, Samuel, go away.
Go outside.
Until I tell you to come back in. And she takes all the locks off the door and she goes down in and you see it and it's trying to get into her and she's confronting it and she's scared, but she gives it the food.
I just don't understand why that's needed.
Or the
Why does she
feeding?
need to keep it alive?
Yeah, why is
Because-
it
in the
being
basement?
fed?
Right.
Because
Why is she keeping it
what
alive?
it says to me is that it is never going to go away. And once something like that happens to you, you are forever changed and you may learn how to deal with it, but it is always something that you're going to live with and you don't make it go away. You just learn how to contain it and you learn how to feed it or just go down in the basement and have your moment to scream and then go back upstairs.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's what it says to me is that because it keeps saying like you can't get rid of the Babadook. We
Right.
just have to make sure it doesn't get in.
Just the compartmentalizing of it.
Right.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of self-care and that's therapy and just continuing to work on that because it's not you solve your problem and everything's happy. She's not broken forever. There's ways and the people around her will still love her, even though that's really hard sometimes.
No
you know?
joke. I bet in a year she'll be dating or engaged to Robbie.
Yeah. Yeah, because they seem like they're doing a lot better, you know? And that's the movie.
So let's do some final thoughts.
I've made my final thoughts clear probably. I love this movie. I can understand why people don't like it. It personally worked for me. I thought it was scary. I thought it was like Hereditary. It's that combination of scary imagery, scary atmosphere, and really hit me hard in the feels that it just got me.
Man, I think Hereditary was so much scarier though.
I do too.
There were so many more and maybe it's just because I'm so much more affected by jump scares than I am by creepy shit.
Yeah, and see, creepy
mean,
shit's what gets me.
And this is much I think Hereditary is even creepier than this is. But
I do too.
This has a lot more creepy elements than it does jump scares. I still think it
Hereditary's
was
just
scary.
relentless,
Fuck,
too.
I hated Hereditary so
it's
much.
pretty
But
relentless.
I didn't hate this movie. I just didn't think it was great.
Mm-hmm.
I would never watch this movie again, but that's largely because it was scary.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was poorly acted or poorly written. I don't connect with it like you do because I'm not a parent and I haven't had these experiences. But I get why you liked it. I'm not its target audience and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like Sex and the City. Like I get that it's a great show. I just don't love it
It's not
because it's
your
not
thing.
written for me. And
Right.
I'm a white guy. There have been enough shows written for me. I'm fine.
true.
Yeah, I'll be fine without it.
yeah.
I maybe feel slightly more appreciative of the depth of the metaphor, but I don't know that it really made me like the movie anymore. I just feel like I could
I get that.
appreciate the goal of the
Yeah.
filmmakers and the writers.
Yeah, let's do box office.
Yep.
So this budget was actually surprisingly low Because I don't feel like it looked that bad. There was that one scene where I didn't love the way it looked, where they did stop motion, but the production budget was $2 million, so it was really low. Well,
And a lot of that was Kickstarter too.
Really? Okay. It did really bad at the domestic box office. It only did it did under $1 million, but it's an Australian movie.
I read a fun fact about that Australian people don't tend to love Australian movies until other countries have accepted them.
Interesting.
I know.
That is interesting.
Funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it did much better internationally. So it did $6.5 million internationally.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, it made money.
It premiered at Sundance, and then that's when it started to catch on.
Oh, okay. But the worldwide box office was like 7.5 million, and then it did about almost 2 million in Blu-ray sales or DVD and Blu-ray sales. So it made its money back for sure.
But
so let's do some Jen's fun facts.
Jennifer Kent is the writer and director of this, and this was her first feature film too.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah. What a way to start off. She based this on a short she did called Monster.
Wait, was it called Momster?
Oh my gosh. You went there.
Title by Todd.
I think you said Tattle by Todd.
That should be the name of your second book.
Title by Todd. Yeah.
Okay. And so she's given some interviews about this, and she said that it's really about facing darkness in ourselves and that the grief is the real monster. Okay. So there are a couple of times when she's yelling at her son to eat shit, and she's saying, I thought about smashing your head. And so she's saying these awful things to a 6-year-old, and apparently on set, but his mom was there the whole time. They really made an effort to make it a really loving and supportive set. And anytime she was saying terrible things like that, it was an adult stand-in who was just kneeling down. So this 6-year-old wouldn't have to hear someone saying those things to him.
I did wonder that.
Yeah.
Because that would be a hard
intense.
thing as a 6-year-old to fully understand what was happening, especially when the person acting is doing a great job acting.
Oh, yeah. And she is amazing in this
I thought she's
movie.
great.
We didn't talk that much about it, but she's just the looks on her faces. Sometimes you can feel exactly what she's feeling, So Jennifer Kent and Essie Davis is the star of this. They went to film school together, and they were both actors.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, she started out as an actor, and then I think she lost interest and wanted to do more directing and writing.
Sort of like an Aaron Sorkin situation, except not as wildly
Did
successful.
he start as a writer?
No,
I mean,
he
actor?
is a writer. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
After he won the Oscar, he did an interview with somebody. I can't remember what it was. And he's like, so what is it like to be the best writer in Hollywood? He was like, I will always see myself as a failed actor who fell into writing. I mean, say what you will about Aaron Sorkin. I don't think he's a great dude. I think he's an amazing writer.
Yeah.
But to hear someone who is literally, in my eyes, the Oscar Wilde of our generation and the best writer for screenwriting, to say that he will always see himself as a failure was like super eye-opening that, everyone sort of sees themselves in sort of a hypercritical way.
Yep.
And if someone that I don't necessarily look up to him, I don't want to be like Aaron Sorkin, but I mean, I do creative things and
and it's hard to keep making that stuff.
It was just so nice to hear someone who I see as super successful and has achieved a lot of success still feel sort of like I do about the stuff they create. I think it was eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
our focus is always on the negative.
Right. Yeah. Jennifer Kent owns the rights to this, and she has said there will not be a sequel to this.
Oh, wow.
Which I really appreciate. I don't think we need a sequel.
Why would there be?
Yeah, exactly.
I think she told the story she wanted to tell.
She did, but I think there's an opportunity for them to turn this into Saw, and start making all the Babadook haunts another one, like the horror version of Mary Poppins in a way, And I'm glad that she's like,
I just appreciate when stories tell their story and get out.
Me too.
Just be done.
We don't need more of this.
I actually do have a fun fact.
Oh,
because we kind of glossed over a little bit when we were talking about the
fun fact.
Yeah, we were talking
fun
about the
fact.
teeth. So the whole glass thing, her holding her mouth the whole time, and then eventually pulling a tooth out.
Oh yeah.
So primary meanings about tooth loss dreams include feelings of grief, control issues, helplessness, malnutrition, fear of failure, and abandonment issues.
Holy shit,
you can
that's
literally tick all the boxes. on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Even malnourishment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because at first when I was reading it, I got to malnutrition. I was just like, no, that. Oh, wait a second. That's 100% in there. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting just because that's a continual thing that she's doing throughout is holding her jaw.
Yeah. And I didn't notice it the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Nice fun fact.
You're welcome.
Okay, so when they were crowdfunding this, if you were one of the ones who contributed to that, you got an actual book. They did make these actual pop-up books, and now you can buy them on eBay for $500.
So Todd, Merry Christmas.
I'm out.
Buying you this one.
Yeah.
Guys,
Does it have all of the pages in it, including the ones that get written halfway through?
Right.
So I would like to invite all of you to my barbecue book barbecue.
Oh my gosh.
We'll find the title.
Patreon goal. Right
I know. We'll throw
Buy
something
Todd
on
a Christmas present.
I would Okay, honestly, if we like crowdfunded that and we made $500 to buy a Babadook book, I would feel horrible burning
Just
that.
well, yeah, we're not burning
Yeah.
it. I'm
We
gonna
probably
put it
would
in
live here in the
place.
pod loft.
It would, yeah, right behind
next
you.
to you.
I already had to sit next to this fucking poster of Dreary.
Or Dairy Maine.
Or of Dairy Maine, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks to Randall who gave it to
Anyway.
us.
Yeah, thanks, Randall. I love it. Okay, so my
Randall's
last
the man. Sorry, go ahead.
My last fun fact is that the Babadook has become an LGBTQ icon, and you see
Well, I
lots
guess
of
if Dorothy can.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I think where this started, look, listeners, I am not 100% sure about how all of this came to be, but Netflix accidentally categorized it in the LGBTQ section of Netflix when it first came out.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it originated from somebody making a joke about how he is an LGBTQ icon, and then it just went viral and people just kind of jumped on. And I read an article about it that was kind of a humorous, how I project a whole bunch of stuff onto movies, like doing the same thing.
Really? You
like
do?
how now I'm not 100% sure I'm going to say this right, but the one I was reading was that the Babadook is learning to live with a straight family, and they're learning to coexist.
Gosh.
And I think it was
Nice.
humorous, but I do
Sure.
you see this imagery at Pride events now. I think it's really
That's
interesting.
awesome.
I know. Yeah. So those are my fun facts.
Learn something.
Those fun facts.
Scary scale.
Our scary scale is a ranking we use to say how scared we were by the movie today. It is not a ranking of the quality of the film. It is a ranking of how scared we were when we watched it today. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters. Our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right. Todd or Emily?
Do you want
Take
to go
it,
first?
Todd.
All right. I will give it a 4.
All right.
It was creepy. There were some jump scares. There's a jump scare we didn't talk about where she was washing the dishes and looking across to her neighbor
Ooh,
who was
yeah.
watching TV.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to her washing dishes, cuts back to the neighbor, and the Babadook is there in the room with her.
And I think that's the biggest one for you.
That was scared me, yeah. So there was a few jump scares that got me, and it was overall creepy, but it wasn't super bad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch it again.
I would probably go 2, and I feel I always feel bad because the few movies that I have come over here and done with you guys, I tend to always give everything a 2. And what's so funny is I actually in the early days of modern horrors wrote an article basically describing myself as a scaredy cat. I honestly think that I've just been so desensitized by things with the number of movies I have watched with Jacob.
How long did that take?
I mean,
Any day now, Todd.
Yeah.
It's probably been 4 years, 3.5 years. So you got a few more to go, Todd. But yeah, I'd probably give it a 2.
I'd say it is less scary than I remembered it being the first time. I think I'm going to give this,
Wait for it.
I don't know. I think I'm going to give it a 6. And
That's a lot higher than I thought you'd give it.
Oh,
for
really?
sure.
Yeah, because it's not scary. I just realized that it hits you emotionally more than it hits me.
Yeah.
So I get the higher score, but
Yeah, because when that emotional connects to the imagery,
emotions?
it bumps it up.
I got you.
And it really hits on a lot of fears that I have just in my everyday life. So, yeah.
So 4, 2, 6.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yep.
And we are a member of the Modern Horrors Podcast Network.
are.
The Modern Horrors Podcast Network is made up of the Modern Horrors Podcast, Final Girls, and Death, Dying, and other things. And of
Yeah.
course, our little show.
Right. And we haven't said this because we've had Emily on our show before, but Emily is married to Jacob of the Modern Horrors Podcast.
It's true.
She is Mrs. Modern Horror. She has an MRS degree in horror.
Well, yeah, I'll go for it.
yeah.
I'll take it.
So, guys, if you want to follow us on socials, it is at Horror Virgin, just like the website is horrorvirgin.com. And if you want to follow Jen at Jen Ferratu on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to follow me, it's at Todd J. Awesome on all those platforms. Oh, yeah. And I don't know if you guys heard, but during this episode, we mentioned the blog.
Yeah.
Specifically the Mama Dook Dook, or not called Mama Dook
Oh
Dook.
my gosh. If somebody doesn't have that Twitter handle yet,
I know. I
I
feel
see an
like I need to
opportunity.
get it. Yeah, or a hashtag at least. Yeah, I wrote a blog, and it's actually called The Horrors of Motherhood. And it's one of the first blogs that I wrote, but it's one of my favorites. And it's comparing the Babadook and Hereditary. So it's really good. I'll post a link to it.
And guys, if you want to support the show monetarily, please do so at patreon.com/horrorvirgin. Right now, we're saving up to buy new gear so we can have better sound.
Headphones, so I can do Janet Jackson dance moves.
Well,
Yes.
headphones, but also better mics and stuff like that, just so we can generally have better sound.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you want to help contribute to that fund, go to patreon.com patreon.com/horrorvirgin and help us out. But if you can't help us out monetarily, you guys are clearly sharing the podcast with your friends, family, and coworkers, and that is as important. So thank you guys so much for that. We've had a lot of growth in the last month. It's been pretty insane. It's weird. Like we've gone and like it's been like 1 month we'll go way up and then we'll sort of plateau a little bit and then go way up. It's been awesome, but sort of weird. I don't quite understand how it's happening, but I'm all right with it.
Right. And thank you, Spotify listeners, because that's a platform that we're really growing a lot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
What's going on with it? But yeah. Hey guys, that's going to be it from us. Hey, happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. My birthday lands on Mother's Day this year.
Oh,
nice.
Yay. Oh, so
just like the death day and birthday for Sam.
Thank you for bringing that
Jeez,
up.
I'm just saying. It's
way to bring us down.
Sorry. Well, happy birthday / Mother's Day.
Thanks.
Yay.
And thank you so much for being on the podcast, Emily. It's always great to have you.
Fun.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to have you back. Yeah.
Always fun.
Make sure you watch
Amityville Horror for
That's
next
right.
week.
That's right.
All right. Thanks. That's going to be it from us, everybody. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day. Have a great day. I'm Jen.
I'm Emily.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
I feel like we need to talk about some really dirty, weird stuff because that's been the way we've ended our.
Oh, no. Mama Duck nerds.